This morning, we're going to meet a person who's probably not too well known. Hopefully by the end of our talk, we'll have gotten to know another unbelievably dynamite woman. So let's begin. As always, let's take a look at the pasuk in the Eshet Chayil, which is representative of her. The pasuk in the Eshet Chayil, Noda b'sha'arim ba'ala b'shifto im ziknei aretz. Her husband is known. He is distinctive. He's distinct. He stands out b'sha'arim, at the gates. Why is he standing out at the gates? Because the gates is the place where the councilmen sit, the elders sit, the judges sit there. So her husband is known to be one of the judges, one of the councilmen. B'shifto im ziknei aretz. He sits with the elders of the land. Wait. I thought we were supposed to be studying a woman in Tanakh. Why is the camera suddenly taken off of her and zoomed onto her husband? Her husband is for another day. I thought we're here to study women in the Bible. Absolutely right. It's true that the camera was taken off of her for one moment and zoomed in on her husband, but there's a very, very good reason for it. On a simple level, before we even take a look at who is this woman that is Noda b'sha'arim ba'ala, her husband is known at the gates, her husband is very, very distinct. Let's take a look on a really, really simple level. The Mitzudat David, one of the commentators on Mishlei, tells us, you know why he stands out, this husband of hers? Aside from Michal, the Eshet Chayil, this great woman of valor, you know why her husband is distinct? Ba'avur malbushei ha'pe'er she'asta leba'ala. She makes beautiful clothing for him. She makes sure he's well dressed and well groomed. הוא נודע וניכר בין חבריו בעת יושב עמהם בשערים, מקום ישיבת הזקנים. So he stands out. He stands out because he's well groomed and he's impeccably dressed. Thanks to her care, he always looks his best and he really rises above everybody. Now, it seems to be a very unlofty compliment to an Eshet Chayil that she does the laundry. The reason I love this particular commentator, although we haven't gotten to Michal at all, is because, sometimes a significant, sometimes not so significant amount of time of an Eshet Chayil is perhaps spent doing laundry. And Shlomo HaMelech recognized it, and take a look, it even makes it into Tanakh. That, right? She has something to do. She's got her hands involved in the way that even he dresses, and there's something to be said. Lofty things, which we will be discussing for the next hour, are built upon little things. And the little things don't go unnoticed either. So if there is a woman whose husband is impeccably dressed, Shlomo HaMelech says, 2 points for you, right? Way to go. That's something that needs to be celebrated, and that's something that needs to be paid attention to as well. Lofty things are built on little things. Why is the spotlight taken off of her, and why is the spotlight put on him? Reason is because our Eshet Chayil saved her husband's life, quite literally. And that's why, just for a moment, we took the spotlight off of her. Who is this Eshet Chayil? The one who, her claim to fame is her husband, but of course that's not her only claim to fame. Source number 3, Noda b'sha'arim ba'ala. Zu Michal, she'etzila David min hamita. This is none other than Michal, the wife of King David, the wife of David HaMelech. She saved him from imminent death. In our talks over the past few months, we've met several of David HaMelech's wives. Many months ago, we met Avigail. And we said that Avigail saved him. How? She saved the integrity of Yesod Malchut Beit David. She saved the integrity of Davidic kingship, of Davidic dynasty. We also met last week Bathsheba, another one of his wives. Bathsheba's greatness was that she was the one through who the seed of the Moshiach was going to come to the world. She's the mother of the Moshiach. She's the mother of Shlomo HaMelech through whom Moshiach comes. Today we will meet another one of David HaMelech's wives, namely Michal, and we'll take a look at the role that she played in his life. To Michal, David literally owes his life. Let's take a look at the story as to how she entered his life and what role she played in making sure that he stayed alive. Source number 4, Shmuel Aleph. David was successful in everything he did, and God was obviously with him. Now there's someone who wasn't too happy about that. Who? וירא שאול אשר הוא משכיל מאוד ויגר מפניו. Shaul, who was king at the time, was intimidated by David. Here's somebody who is much more successful than he is spiritually and in many ways as well. וכל ישראל ויהודה אוהב את דוד כי הוא יוצא ובא לפניהם. The Jewish people, that's right, Shaul HaMelech is still official king. But they are very taken with David because he takes them out to battle and he's so successful. ויאמר שאול אל דוד. So now Shaul's wheels are turning. Shaul is intimidated by this person. Shaul sees somebody who's on a spiritually greater level, somebody with whom Hashem seems to have a lot to do. And Shaul says, how come I can't be like that? And so Shaul's wheels start turning. And Shaul says, I got to get this competition away from me. ויאמר שאול אל דוד, הנה ביתי הגדולה מירב, אותה אתן לך לאישה. דוד המלך, David, I have a plan for you. Why don't you marry my daughter Merav? I believe that she's really wonderful for you. I have one request of you, right? About to ask you to become my son-in-law. Achayeli leben chayil. I want you to become a warrior for me. You be my private warrior, right? You answer directly to me. V'hilachem milchamot Hashem, and you will continue. You'll fight the wars of Hashem. You'll be my general. V'Shaul amar. Now, of course, secretly in his own heart, why was Shaul going to bring David into his home as son-in-law? Al tehi yadi bo utehi bo yad plishtim. I won't do the dirty work. I want David out of my life. But I won't do the dirty work. I'll let the enemy do the dirty work. I'll make him general of the army. I'll make him commander-in-chief. And, somebody else will do the dirty work. David is not so convinced. ויאמר דוד על שאול, מי אנוכי? ומי חיי משפחת אבי בישראל כי אהיה חתן למלך? שאול המלך. I'm really nothing special. I'm not going to marry into the royal family. I don't have purple blood running in my veins. I'm really not royal material. Who am I? I'm really a very, very simple person. All right, plan A is not working. Plan A is out the window. והיא בעת את מירב בת שאול לדוד והיא ניתנה לאדריה למחותי לאישה. Although Shaul wasn't bothered, of course, by David's status, nevertheless, he kind of agreed to give Merav to him, but at the last moment, Merav was taken and was given to somebody else, which is a story unto itself. I don't want to get into it. But plan A is out the window. Plan B of how to get David a melech. Well, David wasn't officially king yet over all Israel, but David was coronated secretly, and he ruled just over a very small portion of the Jewish people, which is why I keep on calling him King David. He wasn't officially king over all of Israel, but he was coronated secretly, and so he was ruling on some level. Plan B presents itself without any effort on Shaul's part. How so? Pasuk Chav, source 4, ותאהב מיכל בת שאול את דוד. Michal, his other daughter, loves David. Does Shaul know this? Well, the people in the palace sure do. ויגידו לשאול, word spreads, Shaul, your daughter, your little one, Michal, she's really got her eyes on David. וישר דבר בעיניו. Oh, Shaul says, this is great. This is better than what I had intended with plan A. ויאמר שאול אתננה לו, ותהי לו למוקש. I'll marry her off to him, and she'll be a snare to him. She'll be the one to trap him. ותהי בו יד פלישתים. And then the Plishtim will kill him, because I'll turn him into my warrior in exchange. And this is great. ויאמר שאול לדוד, בשתיים תתחתן ביום. Shaul says, good news. Sorry about the first botched engagement, but you know what? Through one of my two girls, you'll marry into my family, you'll take the second one. Now, David was kind of not really so interested. He wasn't so reassured after the botched engagement with Merav. He lost interest, so Shaul had to kind of reignite his interests. So he tries to flatter him. ויצף שאול את עבדיו, דברו על דוד בלט לאמור, הנה חפץ בך המלך. Shaul tells his guys, go over to David, flatter him a little bit, butter him up a little bit, tell him I really like him, tell him I desire him, tell him that I want him to marry into my family, וכל עבדיו אהבוך, and we all love you. ואתה התחתן במלך, and really you should marry into the royal family. וידברו עבדי שאול באוזני דוד את הדברים האלה, And so Shaul's guys tell all this flattery to David. ויאמר דוד, הנקלה בעיניכם מתחתן במלך? You think it's so trivial to marry into the royal family? אנוכי איש רש ונקלה. I'm a poor person, I'm a simple person, Kal. I'm nothing to write home about. It's not simple stuff to marry into the royal family. This is an important sentence, you'll see soon why. David thinks of himself as a simpleton. He's a small town boy. He doesn't think too much of himself. ויגידו עובדי שאול לאמור כדברים אלה דיבר דוד. So they sing, listen, David's playing hard to get. ויאמר שאול, כה תאמרו לדוד, אין חפץ למלך במוהר. Shaul says, I know what David is worried about. David is probably worried about the dowry, right? About the money that he's going to have to present me with to earn my daughter's hand in marriage. Tell him I'm not interested in money. You know what I want from him? Forget the money. I don't need a bank account. I don't need a 3-carat diamond ring. I don't need anything. I don't need a new house. I don't need a mortgage covered. I don't need anything. All I want is a little sandwich bag. And in the sandwich bag, what do I want? כי במאה אורלות פלישתים להינקם באויבי המלך. I want a sandwich bag filled with 100 orlot plishtim. I'm going to get really vulgar here. 100 foreskins. Right? When a child is circumcised, the piece of skin that they remove, I want him to kill 100 adult plishtim, which is the arch enemy of the Jewish people at the time, remove their foreskins, put it in a sandwich bag, and deliver it to me. Which is a simple way of turning David HaMelech into the top 10 wanted list of the plishtim. With, right, the David HaMelech's head is going to be wanted on a platter by the plishtim. להינקם באויבי המלך. ושאול חשב, now Shaul's intent was what? להפיל את דוד ביד פלישתים. I don't have to do any dirty work. I'll cry when he dies, but that's it, the work's going to be done. ויגידו עבדיו לדוד את הדברים האלה. So Shaul's guys tell David, you know, he's not worried about dowry, he really likes you, and he doesn't need any money, he just wants 100 אורלות פלישתים. וישר הדבר בעיני דוד. David said, I like this plan. I like it, sounds good. להתחתן במלך. I'll marry Michal. Yes, I absolutely like it. ולא מלאו הימים. Shaul had given him a certain expiration date, you know, by which the orlot would have to be delivered. David did it before the appointed time. ויקם דוד וילך הוא ואנשיו ויח בפלישתים 200 איש. Shaul asked for 100 foreskins. David said, you want 100? From Michal, I give you 200. ויבא דוד את אורלתם וימלאום למלך להתחתן במלך ויתן לו שאול את מיכל ביתו לאישה. Okay, the wedding is over. Michal and David get married under the canopy. There's no wedding band, just a sandwich bag of 200 bloody orlot plishtim. Keep this in mind, this is going to be very important. Okay, so now what? Now what? Shaul's plan B also failed. Why? Michal, right, marrying Michal and getting these 100 foreskins was going to get David killed on the battlefield. But here he is under the wedding canopy. You understand the problem? It didn't work. Plan B failed because look, he's alive and well. It seems to be that God is really with him. Pasuk Kafchet. Now plan B failed too. What is he going to do? Vayar Shaul vayeda ki Hashem im David. Shaul sees, he understands. Whoa, you know, God really is looking out for this David. Umichal bat Shaul ahevatu, and Michal loves David. Oh, she loves David. And there's no way he's going to get her to do something against David. Okay, ויוסף שאול להרוא מפני דוד. So Shaul continued with his being intimidated by David. ויהי שאול אויב את דוד כל הימים, and Shaul harbored ill feelings against David his whole life. Plan C. Plan A, Merav, didn't work. Plan B, Michal, didn't work either. Plan C, okay, now we're going to get a little bit more direct. Source number 5. ותהי רוח השם רעה אל שאול. Shaul became melancholy. He became to understand Shaul's ruach ra'ah is really a whole nother shiur. Maybe God willing, one day in the future we'll do a unit on men in Tanakh, and then we could study Shaul. But in any case, suffice it to say that Shaul became increasingly unhappy with his competition of David. והוא בביתו יושב וחניתו בידו. He's sitting in his house, he's holding onto a spear, onto his weapon. ודוד מנגן ביד. And David, who was hired as his personal private musician to get him out of his ruach ra'at, to get him out of his melancholy, is playing. The man he wants dead, is playing for Shaul to lift his spirits. ויבקש שאול להכות בחנית בדוד. Shaul takes a spear and wants to just, stick it right through David. ויפטר מפני שאול ויח את החנית בקיר ודוד נס וימלט בלילה ההוא. David saves his skin in the nick of time. He literally misses the spear by the skin of his teeth. And he runs for his life. That was plan C. Just kill him! Just kill him! Didn't work either. Plan C doesn't work either. Why? Because David ran. Where does he run? He runs home to Michal. פסוק י"א וישלח שאול מלאכים אל בית דוד לשמרו ולהמיתו. Shaul sends guards to guard David's house. Front, back. There's an argument where were the guards standing, at the front or the back. In any case, guard the house, and when you see him leave the house, kill him. Babokir. Enter onto the stage our heroine. Here's Michal. David and Michal have been married for how long? Not too long. They're newlyweds. She's just getting to know this wonderful David who she's married to. Her father is a king. Her husband is a king. David comes home that night somewhat breathless. Michal, if I was Michal, what would I do? I don't know, I would start crying. What would I do? You cry. David tells her the whole story over dinner, As they're washing dishes, she's thinking, what should I do? What are we going to do? Michal is a quick thinker. She weighs her words very carefully. And she says something to David that's going to be very, very pricey for her. ותגד לדוד מיכל אשתו. And so Michal tells David, לאמור, אם אינך ממלט את נפשך הלילה, מחר אתה מומת. If you don't get out of here, if you don't run for your life tonight, tomorrow you're dead. That's not what I would say if I was Michal. I'm not sure what I would say. I'd probably be crying all night long. She's suggesting to him, go run. Now understand, when Michal says go run, where? To your mother-in-law's house? No. Where? Where? To your mother's house? No. You should know David's parents were also wanted by Shaul. And he had to put them in hiding too. David's going to go into hiding. When you go into hiding, you don't know when you're going to come back. When Michal told him, go run, okay, she wasn't referring to, go run to your uncle in Florida. No, go run. In other words, bye. I don't know when I'm going to see you again. Go, run, save your life. I just married you. And Michal is giving up her life with David with this suggestion. And note, who makes the suggestion? Not our warrior David. David did not make the suggestion. And had Michal not made the suggestion, David may not have thought of this. Now, I don't see any response from David. What I do see is Michal getting into action. Pasuk Yudbet, v'tored Michal et David be'ad hachalon. She makes some kind of a rope out of dinner napkins or linens or I don't know what, and she has him run through the window. She kind of, enables him to, with her rope of sorts, to go out the window. Vayelech vayivrach vayimalet. And he runs. He can't go through the door. Why? There are guards everywhere. This wasn't David's idea. This is all Michal's doing. This is a woman who in time of intense crisis is able to galvanize her energies, and she could see so clearly. Most of us can't think like this in a time of crisis and turmoil, especially if it involves our newlywed husband, and the one who wants to kill him is your very own father. And Michal, with such clarity of vision, right, putting her own personal emotions aside, or because of her emotions of great love for David, if I love him, sure, I want him, but if I love him, I need to let him go, because I want him alive. Rather to have him away and alive than with me and dead. And so he runs. Okay, now he runs. Now if I was Michal, what would I do? I send him a kiss out the window and then what? You cry, what else do you do? Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vatikach Michal et hatrafim. Michal is a quick thinker. It's a moment of great emotional upheaval for her. She runs to the closet and then she gets some trafim. Now, what the trafim are is a topic of debate. We're going to call them mannequins. Okay? She takes something that when you put it under a blanket, it looks like a person. Vatasem el hamita. So she puts it under the bed, under the blanket. Look at what she's thinking of. Why is she doing this? Vet kvir ha'izim sama merashotav. And she puts some goat skin, okay, where the head belongs. In other words, she makes the bed look like there's somebody sleeping in it. But the chaspa beged, and she puts a nice blankie over this whole mannequin goatskin contraption. Vayishlach Shaul malachim lakachet et David. Shaul sends messengers. Michal, honey, David and I have a meeting. Vatomer cholehu. Abba, David, he's so sick. He's got a really bad case of the flu. He can't come to your meeting. וישלח שאול את המלאכים לראות את דוד לאמור העלו אותו במיטה אליי. So David says, oh, he's sick? No problem. Bring him on the wheelchair. Bring him on the bed. It's an important meeting. Cameras and everything. It's a very important meeting. Bring him on his bed. Now the last word in the pasuk, להמיתו. Of course he wants to kill him. ויבוא המלאכים והנה טרפים אל המיטה וכביר העזים מראשותיו. So the messengers, start, putting the bed on a stretcher to get to David, quote unquote, right, over to Shaul. And they see, of course, there's nobody in the bed. ויאמר שאול אל מיכל, למה ככה רימיתני? Shaul is a king. Michal is guilty of what crime? Is a national crime. She's guilty of treason. You just went against the king. And so he's angry at her. Why did you lie to me? ותשלחי את אויבי. You sent my enemy away. וימלט, and now he ran away. If I was Michal, I'd be shaking like a leaf. Michal, oh, look at this actress. ותאמר מיכל אל שאול, הוא אמר עליי, שלחי לי למה עמיתך? You know what he said to me, Dad? He said if I don't send him, he's going to kill me. So I sent him. What'd you expect me to do? The man was standing over me with a knife. With a knife to my throat. Look at this actress. She doesn't bat an eyelash. Here's a woman torn between two men. These two men are both two kings. Man number one is her husband. Man number one is her father. And she makes a decision. And her decision is to remain loyal to her husband, even against the wishes of her father. And in this decision, where there's a moment of great emotional upheaval and great emotional turmoil, she thinks with clarity, which is a clarity unusual in these types of moments. David HaMelech had a nickname for this beloved wife of his. He loved her so much, he called her, source number 6, don't get offended. Western society wouldn't do too well with this nickname. Yeah. But David called her Egla, my little calf, my little sheep. Right? I know today we say, I don't know, pumpkin, butter, I don't know.
You cannot say pumpkin in Hebrew.
Pumpkin in Hebrew? It doesn't sound too... Yeah, it sounds... No, you sure don't. Right. These nicknames, they... No, so it worked. Amarav, source number 6, Egla zu Michal. This nickname was the one which he used so often, it made it into Tanakh. And Chazal tell us, Egla, who is it? This is Michal. Ve'lama nikra shema Egla, shechaviva alav ke'egla. She was so sweet to him. He loved her so dearly, like you love that sweet sheep. Take a look at source number 7, which is going to kind of elaborate and open up for us a little bit more, Pesukim which we just read. מיכל בת שאול שהייתה אוהבת לדוד בעלה יותר מאביה. Michal loved her husband more than she loved her father. שמילתה נפשו מאביה. After all, she helped him escape from the clutches of her father. Take a look at the last, skip the sentence in between, 1, 2, 3, go to the last 4 lines. אמרה לו, אתה הסיעתני לליסטים שלך? Look at this actress. The Midrash is kind of telling us between the lines some of the things that she said in that fateful face-off with her father after she let David escape. You married me off to one of your cronies? You married me off to one of your lunatics, to one of your robbers? ועמד עליי עם החרב. Of course, this is all an act. You know what David did? He stood over me with a sword, להרגני, he wanted to kill me. ואמר לי, אם אין את מברכת אותי, אני ארוג אותך. He said, if you don't help me escape, I'm going to kill you. This man you married me off to, I don't know what you were thinking. Unbelievable. So what did you think, Dad? I was horrified. I was terrified. And of course I let him go. And now you know why her name is Eglah. A sheep, you don't put a yoke, you don't put a heavy burden on a sheep, on a lamb, right? Why do we buy lamb? Because it's so soft, it's so tender, because the lamb hasn't worked. The lamb hasn't carried the heavy burden of field work. So too Michal did not accept the yoke, the heavy load of what? She did not accept the heavy load of her father. Kach Michal lo kibla ol me'aviha. She doesn't accept the yoke of her father. Ela kintera oto. Some people have the ability to shine brightest in the most pressured moments. Michal is one such person. It's a pressuring time emotionally. It's a pressuring time in every sense of the word. And particularly under moments of such intense pressure, Michal has this power to shine bright and to make such monumental decisions that will affect all of Jewish history. For her, what does she think? It's a decision. It's in her living room. It's in her bedroom. It's in her house. It's going to affect her. She doesn't understand that this is a decision, or maybe she doesn't. And because she does, she acts this way. This decision is going to affect all of world history. She saves David HaMelech. He's the father of Melech HaMoshiach. She saves all of redemption. If not for her act, all of future redemption would have been foiled forever. Interesting that this particular woman in the royal family, Michal, and her brother, Yonatan, who we're not going to speak about, but who we're going to briefly mention, that they took such interest in David. Yonatan, Michal's brother, and Michal should have been David's arch enemies. David should have been the last person that they liked. Why? Yonatan, who was the son of Shaul, should have been David's arch enemy. Why? Because Yonatan was supposed to be next in line. He was heir to the throne. He's the son of Shaul. Instead, he looks at David, and he sees in David something, integrity that he himself doesn't have. And so he takes the royal garments, and he gives them to David, and he says, you're more befitting to wear this than I am. And the friendship between them was a friendship of incredible proportions. Michal is another woman who should have picked up her nose when David would walk by. Michal is a woman who should have been appalled by David. Why? Who is Michal? Michal is an aristocrat. Michal is a princess. She is royalty. Michal has royal blood running in her veins. Take a look at source number 9, where Chazal tell us a little bit more about Michal, Tanu Rabbanan. The Gemara lists 4 particular women who, and actually we've already looked at this Dvar Chazal 3 times. We've looked at it 3 times with the other 3 women who we discussed. We're going to look at it again. There are 4 women, the Gemara says, who inspired lust, who aroused passion, desire in other men. And they each did it not God forbid on purpose, but by virtue of these particular traits that they had, they aroused passion in other men. Rachav bishma zinta. Rachav, she aroused passion with her name, and we discussed this when we spoke about Rachav. When you would say the name Rachav, right? You could if a man would hear the name Rachav spoken twice, he couldn't stand straight. Yael bekola. And we spoke about Yael too, and we spoke about how Yael aroused passion in other men by virtue of her voice. So we discussed that too. Avigail b'sichirata. Avigail, the memory of her, and you couldn't stand straight. Right? And we discussed that also. Michal bat Shaul b're'iyata. Michal b're'iyata. You would see Michal. A man would walk into the room and see Michal, he wouldn't be able to stand straight. Michal had this hypnotic presence. She walked into the room and she was beautiful. Michal, her father is described as mishichmo v'mala, shoulders and up. Her father had stature. Her father was a very impressive man. Oh, we were so impressed with him. David was short, redhead, and freckled. He was handsome, yeah, but he wasn't like Shaul. Shaul was mishichmo v'mala. So was Michal. Michal walked into the room and she had this hypnotic, magnetic energy about her. right? She was beautiful. She was an aristocrat. She carried herself outwardly. She seemed like this flawless person. I didn't print the following source, but it's in the same page of the Gemara. In Masechet Megillah, I'll tell it to you orally. Says the Gemara, Kol Adam shaya ore et Michal. Any man who would see Michal, bat Shaul, haya nivhal u'mitragesh. He would get all breathless and he would be all kind of beside himself. U'mizda'azeh, and he would kind of start shaking u'mitchalchel. In simple English, his knees would turn to jello. Okay, that's how we say it today, yeah? He would kind of not be able to control himself. Michal had this incredible effect on other people. She, God forbid, didn't use it for her own adventures. She didn't use it for, God forbid, for anything inappropriate. But this is the power that she had. She was an incredibly influential person. More about that soon. So why would somebody like her show an interest in somebody like David? Let's remember who David was. David was a shepherd, right? David, as can be seen from his own words, and I told you, mark these words, he thought he was a small town boy. Lechem, he was a small town boy. He wasn't royal stuff. Right? He wasn't a prince or an aristocrat or anything like that. True, he became a national hero and he prospered, but he came from Shevet Yehuda. Shevet Yehuda were a tribe of shepherds. He was used to a nomadic lifestyle, right? He was kind of more rough and tumble. He lived in the desert for years and years. He was used to life on the edge. He was connected to the desert. The wilderness of the desert and its hardships were not something new to him. In fact, as we can see from his own words, he once told Shaul, I killed a lion, I killed a bear with my own hands. Here's a man who kills a lion and kills a bear. Okay, he's got blood under his fingernails. At the end of the day, he comes home and he's got to wash the blood out of his beard. Right? This is a man who's like living on the edge. His simplicity, his, let's call it, earthiness, should have repulsed Michal, but she was attracted to it. This tension of, look, a man who kills 200 plishtim, okay, and comes home with a bloody sandwich bag with 200 foreskins instead of a 3-carat ring, you understand? There's a certain, a touch of vulgarity, maybe a touch of crudeness to the persona of David. Of course, David HaMelech in the same breath also wrote Sefer Tehillim, right? This is not a person who's a person who doesn't have any refinement to him. But this let's call it tension of sorts between Michal, the aristocrat, Michal the princess, Michal the daughter of nobility, Michal who is outwardly flawless, Michal who makes your knees turn into jello, yeah? Attracted to David, right, who's got blood under his nails and who's, the guy who's living in the desert from a little small town. This tension, you would think that she would be repulsed by him. Instead, she loves him for all that he is and for all the fiery passion and the realness in his personality. Okay. David is gone. Michal puts on an act, the actress that she is. But now she has to pay the price. Shaul should have done what to his daughter? Killed her. She committed treason. She rebelled against the king. He doesn't. The fate that Michal has to live, you might say, is probably even worse than death. Because he does something to Michal which we can say is probably even worse than death. And what does he do to her? I don't know why the pasuk didn't print out. Shmuel Aleph, it's not in your source sheets, I'll read it to you. V'Shaul natan et Michal bito, eshet David, lepalti ben Laish. Shaul says to Michal, oh yeah, this is what you do? Okay, well, it looks to me like you don't have a husband. No problem, I'll take care of that. He takes Michal and he, watch this, V'Shaul natan et Michal bito, he gives Michal, his daughter, over to who? To Palti ben Laish. Who's Palti ben Laish? And what does it mean he gives her over to? She puts her in jail? No, even worse. He marries her off to another man, Palti ben Laish. But wait, how can a woman have two husbands? Michal is married to David. They didn't divorce. How can he marry her off to Palti ben Laish? A woman is not allowed to have more than one husband. Shaul tells Michal, you know, Michal, this marriage of yours to David, my Beit Din never considered it valid to begin with. I never considered you halachically, legally married to David. the marriage was not a valid marriage. Why not? There's a long Talmudic argument in source number 10, and I'm only presenting you with kind of one of the conclusions of this long involved argument between the Beit Din of Shaul and the Beit Din of David. Shaul's Beit Din, Shaul's halachic authorities of the time ruled, Amar le, source number 10, remember this, if you want to marry Michal, all I ask of you is 100 foreskins. So David went ahead and brought him 200, we know that. Shaul savar, Shaul thought, lo chazo velo midei. These foreskins are not worth a pruta. You know, when a woman gets married, halachically, under the chuppah, right, the chatan has to give her something, which today is a wedding band, yeah, which is worth at least a pruta. Pruta, the smallest coin which has value. The wedding band has to be worth a nickel. If he gives you a can of Tropicana orange juice, you could be married with it. Why? Stuff is expensive. It's worth more than a nickel. Yeah. If he gives you something and it's worth more than it's shaveh pruta, it's worth the smallest coin of bazooka. Opa, you can get married with bazooka. Yeah, under the chuppah. When David comes under the wedding canopy, what does he bring with him? A sandwich bag, okay, of orlot. Shaul says, it's not shaveh pruta. I rule in my Beit Din, that stuff's not worth 5 cents. It's worth nothing. David's Beit Din ruled, David savar, yes it is. Chazu lekalbi v'shunrei. You can use it to feed cats and dogs. It's dog food, it's animal food. Stuff's expensive too. I don't know, I don't have a pet, but I'm assuming you spend money on dog food and cat food. Right? Costs money. He says you can use it for dog food and cat food. The Talmudic discussion goes on, and there were some other issues. Suffice it to say, Shaul's Beit Din did not consider Michal's marriage to David valid from day one. So he takes her and he says, this is your new husband, Palti ben Laish, enjoy the rest of your life. David's Beit Din ruled, we're married. We're totally married. This is shaveh pruta. We're halachically married. Now what do you do? Well, what do you do? What do you do if you're Michal? There's a few things you could do. Number one, you can run away. You can run. The aristocracy doesn't make a scene. The aristocracy doesn't make a stormy fight. Michal, when she makes decisions, she weighs them very carefully. When she told David, go, she understood she might be losing David for a very long time. That was the first thing she understood. She understood she might be risking her life. That was the second thing she understood. And she understood that she's at the mercy of her father now. That's the third thing she understood. And she accepts all those consequences. When she loves David, when you love somebody, right, it's, I want to do what's good for you, right? If she wanted to do what was good for her, she would hold on to him, but I want to do what's good for you. So she understands that she has to pay a price. And she goes. She doesn't run. She doesn't make a fight. She doesn't run away with David either. Why? Because she would weigh him down, because she would endanger his life. And she goes to this man, Palti ben Laish, who lives not in Eretz Israel proper. He lives in the Transjordan. He lives across the Jordan River. Palti ben Laish was a great guy. He was a great guy. He wasn't a bad guy. He was a really great guy. He was a tzaddik. We'll meet him momentarily. He was one of Shaul's friends. So he was, of course, he was devoted to Shaul. But out of respect to David, I mean, Shaul's Beit Din said, go for it. She's your wife. She was never married to Michal to begin with, enjoy. Meet your new wife. But David's Beit Din ruled, that woman is married. You can't touch her. Now he's in a bind. Because king number one says, go for it. King number two says, right, out of respect to king number two, he can't do anything because she's a married woman. So what does he do? So here's Michal in the Transjordan, living with this man called Palti. And they live together, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, not for 3 years, not for 5 years, not for 10 years, for 15 years. Michal, let's call it, is trapped in the house of this man called Palti. Now when you're a woman like Michal, living with, I told you, a great man like Palti, he wasn't a bad guy, he was a good guy. He was a good guy. Living with a man like Palti, you form a connection, you form an emotional bond. Sometimes you cry to each other, right? Surely, two great people, somehow, right? You manage to have conversations with each other and you form a relationship, you form a bond. The Gemara tells us that for 15 years, Palti is living in the same house under the same roof as Michal, and he didn't lay a finger on her. He didn't lay a finger on her out of respect to David and what his Beit Din had ruled. Out of respect to Saul, right, he kept Michal under his roof, and out of respect to David, he didn't lay a finger on her. Let's take a look at the psukim. Let's take a look at source 11. For 15 years they live like this, and for 15 years he doesn't lay a finger on her. And what is David HaMelech doing for 15 years? David is in hiding. There's a civil war going on. David's camp is being sought after by Shaul's camp. Shaul is trying to kill David. Shaul's guys are always running after David's guys. So for 15 years he's on the run. He doesn't go home at night. Where does he go at night? Some cave. He's hiding out. Right? For some time he was hiding out in other countries as a political refugee, literally playing as if he was a lunatic. Right? For years he doesn't go home at night. 15 years are over. Shaul's guys defect. In other words, they go over to David and say, let's stop the civil war. We're going to be loyal to you. We're going to coronate you as king over all of Israel. Let's stop this almost 2-decade bloodshed. Let's begin Malchut Beit David over all of Israel like it's supposed to be. Wow, if I was David, let's go. Let's get the wheels turning. Get the cameras ready. David says, nothing doing until you bring me back my Michal. David, leave your romantic life on hold. What does Michal have to do with any of this? You could stop the bloodshed. It's a monumentous historical moment. All of the Jewish people, the 12 tribes under one king. The Davidic dynasty is about to begin. What are you bringing your personal matters in here for? But David knows, no. For 15 years I couldn't do a thing to help her as long as Shaul was still on the up. But now, the moment that they are suggesting a truce is the first second that I can help Michal. Big things are built upon little things. Big kingship, Malchut Beit David, is built upon little things. Can you be a person who can help out? Michal is trapped. Right? Back way back in the beginning when you first got married, you drank her energy. You drank her strength. Now for 15 years, there's nothing you could do to help her. The moment the window of opportunity opens that you can go and help her out, he says, we're not doing anything. We're not signing any contracts. We're nothing doing until you bring me back my Michal. This is the first moment I can help her. She needs me now. When I needed her, she was there to me and I drank her energy. Now she needs me. And now I'm going to release her from her clutches. Source 11. וישלח דוד מלאכים אל ישבושת בן שאול לאמור תנה את אשתי את מיכל אשר הרסת לי במאורות פלישתים. Give me my wife, Michal, and then we'll talk. Then we'll talk politics. Then we'll talk unification. Okay? They sent for Michal. וישלח ישבושת ויקחיה מהם איש מעם פלטיאל בן לייש. ישבושת, he sends for Michal, and they take her from who? I thought his name was Palti. How come he's Paltiel? We'll talk about that soon. And they take Michal from Paltiel ben Laish. Take a look at the parting between Palti and Michal. Pasuk Tet Zayin. Vayelech ita isha. Her husband goes with her. Which husband? Palti. I thought they weren't husband and wife. Question number 1. And what does he do? Haloch ubacho. He's crying. Can you imagine this? 15 years he lived with a woman. Didn't lay a finger on her. I'll tell you soon how I know. And now they're taking Michal back to David and he's walking behind her. Halochu bacho is this grammatical structure is indicative of continuous action. He's bawling, he's crying his eyes out. Achareh, he's walking behind her. What is she doing? Is she crying? I don't see. Ad Bachurim. And he escorts her until a city called Bachurim. You ever heard of the city on the map? Me neither. Vayomer elav Avner lech shuv. So Avner tells Palti, listen, go home. Palti, go home. It's done. Go. And unless somebody told him go, he didn't want to leave Michal. Can you imagine the influence she had on other people? Can you imagine her energy? Can you imagine the effect she had on others? He wasn't even married to her like a husband and wife. And he was crying his eyes out at her leaving. Vayashov. And he turned around and he went home. Let's take a look at this man called Palti, source number 12. Ktiv Palti uktiv Paltiel. One pasuk calls him Palti, one pasuk calls him Paltiel. מה זה Palti? מה זה לפלוט? מה זה לפלוט? to bring out, but like forcefully, like to, okay, to burst forth. Okay, that's liflot. So his name was burst, something like that. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Palti Shmo. Rabbi Yochanan says his real name was Palti. V'lan nikra shmo Paltiel. So why is he called Paltiel? Shepalto el min ha'avera. Hashem ejected him, so to speak, prevented him from doing an avera. Hashem helped him and kind of gave him the force to pull himself away from committing a sin with Michal. Ma'asa, what happened? The first night, Michal comes to Palti. Saul says, she's your wife. Live with her like husband and wife. What does Palti do? He goes to the basement, takes a look in the storage closet, finds the sharpest sword available. Na'atz cherev beno lebena. He slices his mattresses with that sword. And he sticks the sword right in the middle of the mattress. Amar, kol ha'osek bazeh yidaker b'cherev. If I ever do this, I'll kill myself. I should be killed with a sword. Now I'm sure that at some point he took that sword and he put it back in his closet. But the holes through those mattresses were always there as a reminder. He takes that sword, right, and I'm never going to do this. And in that moment of great clarity, he made it very clear to Michal and to himself that he doesn't plan on touching her. V'haketiv, v'yelech ita isha. But wait, doesn't the pasuk that we just read in source 11 call him her husband? Her husband walked behind her? Says the Gemara, yeah, shena'asa la ki isha. He treated her like you would treat a wife. In other words, he was like her husband in that he treasured her and that he loved her and that he adored her. It was like he was a husband, not intimately, but he treasured and cherished her as if she was his wife. So what was he crying about? He was crying not only because he was losing Michal, whom he had formed a connection to, but he was losing, what was he losing? He was losing out on, for 15 years, you can imagine this man earned great reward for the self-control which he exhibited. So now this mitzvah, when an avera comes your way and you don't do it, you get reward for the not having done anything and for having overcome, right, your inclination to want to do it. Now, you might be looking at me and I'm standing there with my arms crossed over my chest. It doesn't look like I'm doing anything particularly meritorious. But inside, you don't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do this or that. So a person who does nothing, but in his doing nothing, he's really overcoming his evil inclination of something that he wanted to do, gains great reward. So part of the reason he's crying is because all this, in other words, he lost the opportunity to exhibit self-control. Remember the city that he escorted her up to? Ad Bachurim? Such a city is, the name is not the reference to the geographic location. Ad Bachurim, Shena'asu shnehem kebachurim. Bachurim, Bachur is a young lad, a youth. Bachurim, they were like youths. They did not taste the taste of marital intimacy. He remained a youth, so to speak, in that he didn't do anything with her, and she remained a youth in that she didn't taste the taste of intimate relations with him. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and so Rabbi Yochanan says about Paltiel ben Laish, Tokfo shel Boaz, anvenuto shel Boaz. Tokfo shel Yosef anvenuto shel Boaz. Who else in Tanakh was put in this situation of great temptation and didn't do anything? Of course, the famous story of Yosef, says the Gemara. And you know what? You know who was even Yosef, right? He didn't touch who? Who was the woman? She was Eshet Potiphar. She was a married woman. So okay, great. Yes, of course it was great, but again, she was married. So so it was great, wonderful. Yes, we give you a lot of credit. You were young, you were 17, a lot of hot blood, and you didn't do anything. Yeah, but she was married. Boaz finds himself in a situation which we also discussed many, many months ago with a woman who was single, Ruth. And it was late at night, and he was allowed to be with her, and he didn't touch her, right? Palti ben Laish finds himself with a woman who they're telling him, she's your wife. You understand? So Palti ben Laish, as the Gemara, he kind of almost rose above Yosef and above Boaz in the amount of self-control that he displays. So much so, the Gemara the Tosafot actually on the Gemara tell us, kind of move back the curtains and give us a little in as to what their house looked like. You know, a man halachically is not allowed to be cloistered alone in a room with another woman who is not his wife. This is the halacha of yichud, right? To be alone with somebody else. So how did he live for 15 years with a woman under his roof if he's not allowed to be with her? So the Tosafot says like this. Source number 13. Palti ben Laish shena'atz cherev beno lebena. This Palti who put a sword in the middle of the bed. Ika lemeimal sherachok mimena haya beyoter. Not only did he not have intimate relations with her, but he distanced himself from her physically. How? V'haya patuach lereshut harabim. He had his doors open. Halacha is, if you're with another woman who's not your wife, right? You cannot lock the door at night and be with her under one roof. So what did he do? Yes, he was sensitive to this halacha, and he always kept the door open to a public domain. He was sensitive to this too. Shelo haya mishum yichud, so that he would not transgress this prohibition of yichud. Or shema savar keshaul shelo haya mekudeshet levid umachmir al atzmo sheyam lavo eleh. Or you know, if he, let's say he accepted Shaul's Beit Din's decree that she wasn't married, nevertheless he was machmir, he was stringent upon himself, and he decided that he wasn't going to do anything no matter what. What about Michal? In this episode of returning back to David after 15 years. You know, Michal appears in Tanakh 3 times. The first time Michal appeared, we already saw. She loves David, they marry, and she helps him escape. That's the Michal with all the energy. This is Michal, our actress. This is Michal who is hypnotic, who weighs her words very carefully. This is the Michal who has great influence over other people. The second time Michal appears is right here, 15 years later, when she's brought back to David. And do I hear her say a word? Nothing. I hear Palti, oh, he's crying his eyes out. I don't hear a word from Michal. Some biblical scholars have done the following with it. I'll present it to you, and I'll tell you what I think. Some biblical scholars see this Michal as a Michal who basically snapped. After 15 years of having to have emotionally, stifle herself, she basically snapped. And what was left of her was an empty shell, like a body without a soul. Emotionally, she was dead. She had nothing left to give. And so rather than crying, just like she was taken passively, we said she didn't make a scene, she was returned back passively. But she was like a different person. She almost underwent some kind of death of personality. This is what some biblical scholars do. Steinsaltz in particular, Adin Steinsaltz does this. Others, like Rabbi Shlomo Aviner, see it a little bit differently. Michal's silence and being brought back to David is not indicative of death or of having snapped or of having just remaining as an emotional shell. Rather, Michal understood, I saved his life. I need to pay the price. And the price that I need to pay is going to cost me very much. Death might have been preferred, but the price that I'm going to pay is a price. Her devotion to David overtook her devotion to her father. And her love for David, which was focused on him, not on her. Michal was the type of woman who everybody adored. Is the type of woman who could very easily slip into arrogance, because Michal is the type of woman, again, she's hypnotic. Everybody adores Michal. And this could have led her to arrogance. But Michal is a woman whose love for David is focused on him. And so if that means that she has to the only way that she can survive is to maybe emotionally disattach a little bit so that she doesn't break, so be it. So she disattaches a little bit emotionally so she can manage, so she can go on. But the Michal that comes back to David is a Michal who took upon herself the heavy price that she had to pay for saving David's life. Okay, this is the price I need to pay, and I'm willing to do it. This is a woman who doesn't break when the going gets tough. This is a woman who shines. This is a woman who doesn't snap, right, when it's all black and when it's all bleak. This is a woman, right, who really shines her brightest when the going gets tough. And when she's brought back, her lack of reaction is not necessarily a symbol of a death of personality. It's possible that she acted with such selflessness that we don't even have a mention of anything any description of her when she's brought back, because the essence of the personality trait which really came through here is one of selflessness. She wasn't focused on herself, she was focused on David. And that selflessness is possibly what the Pasuk is trying to impress upon us when we're not told anything about her, because the midah which she portrayed was one of complete selflessness. And this was her strong point. You would think somebody like Michal would slip into arrogance of self, right? All involved in herself, but her selflessness was her strong point here. The final episode in which we meet Michal is a little bit tricky. David has been coronated over all 12 tribes. One of the first things David wants to do is to bring the Holy Ark, into Ir David. And the Pasuk is about to describe the great, great festivities which took place when the Aron HaKodesh was going to be brought into Ir David. And so the camera kind of zooms in on David's great joy and great ecstasy of this monumentous moment in history when not only he's coronated over all 12 tribes, but the Aron HaKodesh is brought back. Take a look, source 14. ודוד מחרקר בכל עוז לפני השם. David is dancing with all his might before God. Note, before God. ודוד חגור אפוד בד, and he was girded with a linen tunic. ודוד וכל בית ישראל מעלים את ארון השם בתרועה בקול שופר. And David and all the Jewish people are bringing the Aron HaKodesh up, and there's great sound, and they're blowing the shofar, and it's a monumentous moment. והיה ארון השם בעיר דוד ומיכל בת שאול נשקפה בעד החלון. Michal didn't join in the festivities. Michal, the men were doing a lot of the dancing, and Michal kind of stayed at home. And she's looking out her window like many women are. She's looking out the window and she sees her husband, Vatere. Oh, but look, it doesn't call her the husband, it calls Vatere et HaMelech. She sees the king. Of course, it's her husband. She sees the king David. מפזז ומחרקר לפני השם. He's leaping and jumping and dancing before God. ותיבז לו בליבה. And she despises him in her heart. She looks down upon him. What's he doing there, dancing and jumping like a frog? David, he's on spiritual fire. After the festivities are over, he wants to come home and he wants to bless his wife and he wants to bless his family. וישב דוד לברך את ביתו. He wants to bless his household on this wonderful day, wants to give out brachot. David can't even go back into his own house. Who meets him already outside in the yard? ותצא מיכל, and now look at what she's called. Bat Shaul. Michal, the daughter of Shaul, walks out לקראת David to greet David, and look at what she has in her hands, a piece of her mind. ותאמר, מה נכבד היה מלך ישראל? Wow! You looked so honored out there. Of course, this actress is dripping with sarcasm. You king of Israel, so honored you were today. אשר נגלה היום לעיני אמהות עבדיו. You exposed yourself. You exposed yourself in front of, in front of the maid, in front of the servants of your servants. Who are the servants of your servants? He's referring to the ladies who were all looking out the window. We all saw you. You're jumping up and down like a frog. What do you think you're doing? You exposed yourself like a boor, like a lowlife. Ouch. Ouch. Oh no, David doesn't say ouch. David returns the rebuke, one for one. ויאמר דוד אל מיכל. David says to Michal, לפני השם אשר בחר בי מאביך ומכל ביתו לצוות אותי נגיד על עם השם, על ישראל, ושיחקתי לפני השם. This leaping and this dancing that I was doing, Michal, make no mistake. I was dancing before God. I had nothing of I wasn't interested in me and myself and how I look. This wasn't about me. This wasn't about, the royal throne. This was about God. what you saw out there, Michal. I know you think it looks like really low. Michal, I can go much lower than that if you think that's low. It was a dance I danced before God. Oh, and this king, yes, this king, right, who you're pointing fingers at is a king that, if I may remind you, God chose above your father. There's a reason he is putting himself above Michal's father. You'll see in a moment why. And you know what, Michal? I can behave even more humbly than this. I shall be lowly in myself. I will consider myself lowly. And regarding all the ladies, the Jewish ladies, who you called them the servants of the servants, among them I will be honored. These women who you said, we're all looking at our windows, these Jewish women, the servants of the servants, you made a fool out of yourself in front of them. Among them is my honor. Among them is my greatness. Last pasuk. ולמיכל בת שאול לא היה לה ילד עד יום מותה. And Michal did not have a child as a consequence of this until the day of her death, which can be taken in one of two ways. Either she didn't have a child until the day she died, period. She died without any children. Or, according to other commentaries, she did have a child. The day of her death, she died in childbirth. So she did have one child, and this is the child that she had when she died. The Midrash in source 15 gives us a little bit of in between the lines of what Michal was saying when she was criticizing and rebuking David as such. Let's take a quick look, source 15. וישב דוד לברך את ביתו. So when David comes home after this joyous event to bless his household, ולא הניחתו להיכנס לתוך הבית. She didn't even let him get into the house. אלא יוצאת לחוץ. She went out, והייתה מקפחתו בדברים, and she was, banging him with the hammers, proverbial, right, so to speak. ותאמר לה, מה נכבד היה מלך ישראל? You're so honored today. אשר נגלה היום לנמות עבדיו. Right? You exposed yourself in front of all these lady servants. מכאן אתה למד שהיה הופך, from here you learn, says the Midrash, that he was making leaps in the air. He was literally jumping like a frog. He was jumping like you would see in a circus. שכן היא אומרת לו, אשר נגלה היום. She says, you got all exposed. Right? Your tunic, when was flying up and like we saw you. והתחילה עושה מריבה כנגדו, מבקשת לאכול פניו. She wanted to eat him alive. אמרה לו, אם ראיתי כבודך, מה נכבד היום מלך ישראל, עכשיו הודעת שאתה מלך אשר נגלה היום, הלוואי בצניעות. You wanted to jump and leap like a frog. I wish you would have done it more modestly. אלא לעיני אמהות עבדיו. But you exposed yourself in front of everybody. Where's your modesty? Where's the respect to the throne? Where's the majesty? Where's the grandeur? Right? When the king comes, when the president comes, everybody else will do the leaping and jumping. At least you. Where's respect to the throne? What kind of behavior is this? And P.S. these maidservants, says the Midrash, Ele Neshei Yisrael. She was referring to the Jewish women, and she called them servants. כך היה דוד מרקד לפני אהרון, אמרה לו, היום נגלה כבודו של בית אבא. She says, today I really see that my father, Shaul, I see that his honor was much greater. היום נגלה כבודו של בית אבא. בואו ראה מה בינך לבין בית אבא. Look at the difference between you, king, and between my father, king. כל בית אבי היו צנועים וקדושים. My father's household, they were so holy, they were so modest. אמרו עליו על בית שאול שלא נראה מהם לא עקב ולא גדול ממהם. In my father's household, you never saw the palm of a hand of a man. You never saw the heel of a foot of a man. They were always covered. They were perfect. They were always covered. They were so modest and holy. You never saw their hands, you never saw their feet. וכך אמר לו מיכל, של בית אבי היו צנועים כל כך. ואתה עומד ובגלה לבושך כאחד הריקים. My father's household, I'm used to propriety, I'm used to modesty, and you're being all exposed. Okay, she said her piece. כיוון שגמרה דבריה, when she finished talking, אמר לה, וכי לפני מלך בשר ודם שיחקתי, מיכל. I wasn't interested in putting on a show in front of people. ולא לפני מלך מלכי המלכים שיחקתי. Michal, this wasn't about making a show in front of people. I'm not interested in what people were thinking about me. That dance was a dance that came from my soul, and I did it before God. asher bachar bi me'avich. And that God whom I was dancing in front of, he chose me above your father, mikol beito. Ve'ilo haya avich tzadik yoter mimeni, haya Elokim bocher bo. And lo Elokim bocher bi. And if your father was so righteous, then he wouldn't have chosen me. Your father would have remained king. And then he says the following. Amar la, של בית אביך היו מבקשים כבוד עצמם ומניחים כבוד שמיים. Your father's household, they were more interested in preserving their own honor, and they left alone the honor of God. I am less interested with my own honor. I am more interested in the honor of God. אני איני עוסקת אלא מניח כבוד עצמי ומבקש כבוד שמיים. You're right, I'm not like your father. Your father's household, they were interested in their own honor, in their own image. Not me. I'm more interested in the image of God than in my own image. And regarding the Jewish ladies in front of who you think I made a fool of myself, oh, those women, they are my greatness, they are my honor. All those Jewish girls that you're calling them servants, they're not servants, they are matriarchs. I wish that in the world to come, I should have a place among those women that you're calling them servants. I wish my olam haba will be with them. And so Michal doesn't have a child until the day of her death. Let's try to understand this final episode of Michal. Let's try to understand this criticism which she throws at David. And she herself is also criticized for having spoken this way, because look at the terrible punishment that she gets as a result. Let's understand where her criticism comes from. Michal, being the influential woman that she is, she has no problems criticizing anybody. Michal will look at you, she sizes you up instantly, and she'll tell you exactly what's in her mind. And you know what? She's usually right on target. She told her father exactly what she thought. She told David exactly what she thought way in the beginning when he had to run for his life. If you don't run, you're going to die tonight, Dad. And she makes up a whole... Michal is a woman who she has very high standards. Her judgment is very sharp. And she is usually absolutely right. If judgment has to be meted out, then she speaks her mind. And she doesn't care who is listening. Michal could have used her powers of influence, of her hypnotic abilities for her own, personal adventures, but she doesn't. She's a woman who wants to materialize her potential to the fullest. When Michal's focus was on where's the grandeur of the throne, where's the respect, where's the majesty, she may have been focusing on outer appearances more than on inwardliness. Michal, we said, was somebody who appeared outwardly flawless. And this is why, because she really was flawless. Michal worked really hard on herself. She was an accomplisher. Michal is the type of woman who has to materialize her potential to the fullest, to the degree that, take a look at source 16, unbelievable. Michal hayta menichat tefillin. Velo michu chachamim beyada. Michal was one woman who used to put on tefillin every morning. Now, usually when a woman puts on tefillin, one is supposed to discourage her from it. It's not her place. For many halachic reasons, it's not her domain. Halacha for Michal was different. The rabbis didn't say anything to her. They let her. Why? Michal had climbed the ladder of Yirat Hashem, of fear of God, of spiritual closeness to Hashem, to the point where the tefillin were like a crown to her head. She did so privately, she didn't do so in public, and in fact the Chachamim tell us, Ein lilmod mimena. Other women should not learn from her and put on tefillin too. Michal was the exception to the rule. The rabbi, usually when a woman puts on tefillin, the rabbis mochin beyada are supposed to explain, it's not your domain. This is for many reasons. This is not for you. Yeah, but Michal wore tefillin and nobody said anything, and she didn't do it because of a momentary spiritual high or because she wanted to prove something to anybody. Michal was a woman who was an accomplisher to the utmost degree. She had to materialize her potential to the fullest. For you to understand where we're coming from, she was a flawless person. When you're a flawless person, sometimes you can sometimes you can lose sight and just focus on outward appearances, on being outwardly flawless. That's what she was focusing on with David. When you're a person who presents an image of being flawless because you are flawless, the downside of that is that sometimes you can get caught up in external appearances, which she wanted to be flawless. David was telling her, Michal, I'm not interested in outward appearances right now. David was telling her, right, where's the emotion, Michal? Where's the spiritual fire? Where's the spiritual closeness? Forget appearances. This is God. Where's the spiritual passion? This is what David was concerned with. Here we see that friction, that tension, the difference between Michal, the aristocrat, and David, the shepherd. It didn't originate from a place of haughtiness. Michal's statement didn't originate with a place of haughtiness. Yes, maybe there was some haughtiness there, but it didn't originate with haughtiness. Michal was passing judgment with her mind only. She wasn't passing judgment. She wasn't incorporating her soul, her heart, into this criticism that she gave to David. And so let's understand, God forbid that we should conclude that Michal was a person who is speaking, who completely snapped and she doesn't know what she's saying. No. Michal is a person who wore tefillin. She's a person who is an accomplisher who needs to materialize her potential to the fullest. And so she climbed the ladder of fear of God to the top until she got to the point where she wore tefillin and the rabbis did not discourage her from it. This same Michal who really was flawless, she really was flawless. The downside of that is that she became preoccupied with outward flawlessness. It has to look perfect. And David said, there's more to that. There's more to that. Where's your soul? Where's your heart? Can you connect emotionally? Can you allow your soul to be on fire? That's what I'm interested in. I want to be my soul to be on fire. I want passion. I want a genuine, sincere fire that's in my heart. I want it to come out. And you know what, Michal, that's nothing. There's much more there. You mistook me. You think that I can go even further than that. So here we have we see that sometimes your greatest strong points can also be your weaknesses. That which you're best at, the accomplisher, the motivator, the inspirer, the one who has such a magnetic energy, the one who can make such weight decisions, can also sometimes, because she is so perfect and so flawless, be preoccupied with outward appearances. And that was where she erred. I want to end off with a final note, and then I'll let you go. There is another woman in Tanakh who saved her husband's life. And the Kabbalistic sources tell us that Michal and this woman are really a reincarnation, is one and the same. Who is the woman in Tanakh who saved her husband's life? Her husband, I'll kind of give you some hints and you'll tell me who she is. Her husband was going to be part of the group that was going to rebel against... Good. So you're in the right story. You're in the story of Korach. Who is that one individual? Who is that? What? Oh, we have this man, right? In the Torah, his name is On Ben Pelet. On Ben Pelet. The word Pelet sound familiar to you? Palti. Okay, good. Stay there. On Ben Pelet was a guy from Shevet Reuven who was supposed to be part of the 250, cronies who were swallowed up in the ground together with Korach. He comes home to his wife. He says, what am I going to do? And she says to her husband, dear On, after she makes him a nice dinner and everything, she says, what's it to you? If Korach wins, you're going to be under him. If Moshe wins, you're going to be under him anyway. What's it to you? What's it to you who's in charge? What are you doing? He says, I don't know, honey, you're right, but what can I do? I already, I took an oath. I can't back out now. In other words, I'm a man of my word. His ego is creeping in. She can't talk logic. She says, forget it, we're not talking logic. Honey, why don't you go to take a long nap? I'll take care of everything. Midrash says she gave him something to drink. She gave him some wine. She put him to sleep and she covered him with a blankie. Sound familiar? Sound familiar. Because of Michal, right? What did she do? She said, Kol ha'eda kulam kidoshim. I know, this is the battle cry of Korach, I know that we're all holy. So she goes to the entrance of her house, she removes her head covering, and she takes a brush and she starts to brush her long, beautiful hair. Why does she do this? Because Korach and his guys are about to come knocking on the door to pick up On Ben Pelet. But if they see a woman in such a state of exposure, there's no way they're going to come. I say, sorry, we can't go. It's not like they could text him or email him, On, we're waiting for you, So they don't come close. They see that she was in a state of exposure. No way they were going to approach her with uncovered hair. And so they let her be. She saved his life. On Ben Pelet's wife saved his life. The Rama, Rabbi Menachem Azaria Mepano, in his book Sefer HaGilgulim, tells us that the wife of On Ben Pelet, who saves the life of On, comes back later as Michal. Just like On Ben Pelet saved her husband, so too Michal is the one who ends up saving her husband. And On Ben Pelet, this Pelet, as you correctly hear, sounds the same as Palti. One is written with a taf, one is written with a tet, but the two letters are interchangeable. And Pelet comes back from Palti ben Laish, comes back, and he had originally been On Ben Pelet. And just like the first time around, when On Ben Pelet was saved by his wife, Hashem palat oto mehamachloket shel Korach, Hashem prevented him and ousted him from getting involved in being swallowed up by the ground with Korach. So too Hashem palat et Palti ben Laish min ha'avera. This one Hashem palat min ha'machloket, and this one Hashem palat min ha'avera. And these two women, the wife von Ben Pelet and Michal, both saved their husbands, are really one and the same. Okay, ladies, thank you very much.